Okay, this is kind of the whole point. Is you're literally defending Maduro and Venezuela right now.
Maduro. I am telling you, the guy you say is unifying is a pathological liar.
Don't you feel unified? I mean, I feel so unified that the president, he's just unifying everything. It is painting us.
We are being brought together.
Had border policies that actually worked, those people wouldn't be here, and those deaths would not have occurred. That's the difference. So when you can point directly to policy, I think that's obviously well within the scope of any president.
Illegal immigrants and criminality. He said that the man who had killed the Ukrainian woman in Charlotte, North Carolina, Irina, was an undocumented immigrant who had been let in by Biden. That was a lie. He's a U.S. citizen. He was born in North Carolina.
I just came across this clip and I had to make this video. We are going to see the Abby Phillip Newsnight panel absolutely dismantle two Trump bootlickers, or whatever you want to call them, and I promise you it is epic, so stick with me to the end. Right, so look, if you haven't been paying attention to what's been happening since the State of the Union, let me just say, it's been a masterclass in chaos, 108 minutes, the longest address in history. And what did Trump spend a good chunk of it doing? Going after Ilhan, Omar and Rashida Tlaib with the same tired, racially charged nonsense we've heard for years now. And here's the thing, Omar and Tlaib didn't just sit there and take it. They pushed back, they called it out in real time. And now? Now the political theatre is in full swing, the spin machines are working overtime. And with the midterms on the horizon, the stakes couldn't be higher. If you love watching me unravel disasters like this, please click that subscribe button.
That ugly State of the Union clash, well, it just got a little uglier because now President Trump is escalating his fight with Democratic Congresswomen Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. Both had begun shouting when Trump challenged Democrats to stand for Americans while he was speaking about illegal immigration and fraud in Minnesota. Now, in a post today, Trump said that Omar and Tlaib screamed uncontrollably and had the bulging, bloodshot eyes of crazy people. He likened them to lunatics and suggested that they be institutionalized. Then he added, quote, "We should send them back to where they came from as fast as possible." Vice President J.D. Vance also got in the war of words.
They were all looking around for cues from their colleagues because they didn't have the courage to stand on their own. And that, more than anything, Bill, is the saddest commentary on the Democratic Party, that not only will they not stand for the idea that Americans should come first, they won't even have the courage of their convictions. They lean on the person to their left and their right rather than actually have some conviction.
But Omar says that she has no regrets.
And I think many people look at that moment when the president says it is our responsibility to protect Americans, and he does not acknowledge the fact that two Americans, two of my constituents, two of our neighbors were killed. And it was important for me to just remind the American people that the president and his administration was responsible for killing two American citizens.
Congressman Moskowitz, you were in the room last night, right? Was that moment what Donald Trump ultimately wanted and what perhaps your Democratic leadership wanted to avoid?
Oh, yeah, no. The president clearly came in with a strategy to do that. Right? His strategy was to try to rage bait people into that fight. He wanted that, and he got it. Look, ultimately, he's not deporting two members of Congress, just like he didn't lock up Hillary, even though that was chanted in arenas, around the country. So, look, he can't fix his poll numbers. He can't turn around the fact that he's underwater on the economy, underwater on immigration, the two issues that helped get him elected. So what he's going to try to do is he's going to try to fight to the point where he tries to make us not an option, right? He wants to just bring us down with him to the hope that that might help him somehow survive the midterms. This is the new strategy. He met with his pollsters. They saw where everything is. They can't turn around their stuff. They've ruined it in the first year. So the strategy is to try to bring everybody down in order to survive the midterms.
So Rashida Tlaib responded to Trump. She said, "Can't take two Muslims talking back and correcting him, so now he's crashing out." And then she used the hashtag President Majnoon, which means crazy or insane in Persian.
Yeah, I mean, she also got what she wanted, which was a mistake, I think, for the Democrats to play into that. I actually agree with the congressman. I think the president was setting up Democrats in a really simple and easy way. They shouldn't have fallen for it. It seems pretty easy to stand up and say, actually, no, I support American people first. That is where I stand. And we can have a nuanced conversation afterwards if you want about illegal immigration. But they walked into that trap because it was so easy to set.
Well, but that's not true. I mean, I stand for...
Most Democrats did not stand.
I stand for Americans over non-citizens, and so do all of my colleagues. But just because... It's not the Galactic Senate. Just because the Emperor says rise doesn't mean I get up. Like I'm a different.
You rose sometimes,
I'm a different branch of government. I rose for the heroes that were in the gallery, not because the president.
But not for the other point. I mean, you rose because, and thank you for rising. I think in those cases that this is an easy moment to be united, whether it's around Team USA or it's around any of the people who were featured there. But that's sending a message that you agree with the statement or the sentiment, and you chose not to stand.
Well, I'm sure if Joe Biden told Republicans to rise, they would have leapt from their seats.
But to that point, doesn't that happen at every single State of the Union address? The president says something innocuous. The party that is the opposite party doesn't stand. That happens every single year.
Yeah, but I don't feel like
this.
I don't feel like these shouting matches used to happen. I mean, they started happening maybe that in my memory with Joe Wilson under Obama.
Right. So let's get into this first clip, shall we? Okay. Send them back to where they came from. There it is. The quiet part said loud. Again. For what? The 100th time now. And this is the sitting president of the United States talking about 2 elected members of Congress. 2 American citizens. Rashida Tlaib was born in Detroit. And Ilhan Omar has been a US citizen for over 2 decades. But facts don't matter when you're playing to the cheap seats, do they? And Moskowitz, hold on, I need to give credit where it's due here. Moskowitz absolutely nailed it. Rage bait. That's exactly what this is. Trump's polling is underwater on the economy, underwater on immigration. The very issues he rode into office on. So what's the play? Drag everyone into the mud with him. Classic. But here's what really gets me. The audacity of sitting there with a straight face and suggesting these women should be institutionalized. The man who just delivered a rambling 108-minute speech is calling other people unhinged. The irony is so thick you could choke on it. And J.D. Vance, J.D. Vance, talking about courage of convictions. This is the same man who called Trump America's Hitler before becoming his most loyal lapdog. You cannot make this stuff up.
I don't like Donald Trump. I don't support Donald Trump, but I am an institutionalist, and I think that there is a pomp and circumstance and gravitas to something like the State of the Union. Does he use it to lie? Yes. Does he use it to divide? Does he use it to attack immigrants? Yes. But that doesn't mean that that 2 Congresspeople should be in this shouting match. And look, what he tweeted out today is horribly racist. And I say this as somebody that gets told the same thing over and over again. Go back to where you came from. I can't tell you how many times I open up social media and it says, go eat a burrito and go back to Mexico, because racists are so stupid, they don't realize there's more than one country in Latin America, and I'm not from Mexico. Also, I don't eat burritos. I like tacos. But the fact that what he said is racist and it is horrible, and it's, it emboldens and it strengthens, empowers racism. My question is, how does it help American citizens to have the President of the United States and 2 Congresspeople in a pissing match over stupidity? How does it help them have lower grocery prices? How does it help him have access to health care, access to housing? And actually, I think it's, you talk about Donald Trump goading them into this. I think this is really stupid by Donald Trump. I mean, most people use the State of the Union as a launching pad to then go out and sell their agenda and try to have it be a good moment for them. And instead, he's out there in the, in the bottom of the gutter, fighting and being a racist pig. Why?
Can I just ask this question? Is it asking too much to expect the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, to set the tone in the room for the State of the Union?
Yes, it's asking too much.
Okay, but
it's asking too much.
It had to be awful tough. I talked to a lot of members of Congress about attending versus not attending. Both of the Congresswomen who the President, the Commander-in-Chief, have been after for a while now.
Yeah, that's true.
Were in the room, in their seats, on behalf of the people that they represent. I served as a law enforcement officer for a lot of years, and to even ask or make a statement that you need to protect this group first over another group. When I was on the street, if somebody needed help, I didn't check their citizenship before I helped them. So the president started off trying to divide, which he does so well, the nation, right? And you want to talk about protecting Americans? That's exactly what Ilhan Omar was doing, talking about 2 U.S. citizens who were killed under very questionable circumstances in her district.
Now, this is what I'm talking about. Did you catch that? Did you catch what she just did there? The woman on this panel, she's laying it out perfectly. She's saying, yes, Trump is a racist pig. Her words, and she's right. But then she's asking the more important question. How does any of this help actual Americans? And here's where I want to push back just slightly. Because I hear the institutionalist argument. I do. Decorum matters. The pomp and circumstance, all of that. But let's be honest about something the clip touched on, but didn't fully explore. When you have a commander-in-chief who has made targeting these 2 specific women his hobby for nearly a decade now, going back to 2019 with his go-back tweets, at what point does staying silent become complicity? The former law enforcement officer on that panel, he hit something crucial. He said when he was on the street, he didn't check citizenship before helping someone. That's the baseline of human decency that's apparently too much to ask from the highest office in the land. And here's what the media consistently misses in these discussions. This isn't spontaneous. Trump's attacks on Omar and Tlaib, specifically, aren't random outbursts. These are calculated provocations designed to dominate the news cycle, while his tariff policies just got slapped down by the Supreme Court. You remember that ruling from last week? Of course you don't, because we're all talking about this instead. The distraction is the strategy. Full stop.
Is it fair for her to raise that? I mean, Trump is asking about protecting Americans. Is it fair for her to raise the 2 Americans who were killed?
Well, I think Trump's entire speech was actually pretty unifying. I think Donald Trump's superpower is positioning himself as the common sense guy who's advocating for positions that the vast majority of Americans want. And there was one moment at the beginning where he invited the USA hockey team, and of course the crowd went wild chanting USA, USA, and then the camera panned to Rashida Tlaib, who appeared to be mouthing KKK. And then again, you had another moment where Trump says, stand up if you want to support American citizens over illegal aliens. And instead, Ilhan Omar is screaming and heckling the president. And those are the best kind of sound bites and visuals that the GOP can have for the midterms, because a lot of people might not like Donald Trump and might be kind of hemming and hawing. And then they look at the alternative and they say, oh, well, this really angry woman, gosh, I don't know about her. So that's what Trump set out to do.
That was my question.
Highlight the 80-20 issues.
In response to his own question, is it fair for the Democrats to respond, why, yes, we do care about American citizens, including 2 that were killed.
Yes, it is fair, but not in that venue.
But
it is fair, but not at
to
that
me
moment.
That the President of the United States did not even mention the 2 U.S. citizens that were killed in Minnesota. How do you do the State of the Union, because you care about Americans so much, and not even mention the 2 people who lost their lives on the streets of America at the hand of federal agents?
One who tried to run over.
But how do you not even, you can do your commentary all you want, or, critique, but how do you not mention that 2 people died in that environment? And the president was one of the most unifying speeches, the president who said, look at the Democrats, aren't they crazy? He obviously does not understand that when he won election, he is supposed to represent all people.
When you go through some of the moments he went to, right, he pointed to a little girl, Delilah, who was almost killed by an illegal alien, miraculously came back. She was there with her dad. When you have Democrats who won't stand and applaud her recovery, yeah, I think that's crazy.
Sadly, people are killed in America every day. Sadly. And the majority of them are killed by U.S. citizens. So whether an undocumented immigrant,
I'm saying
whether it's an undocumented immigrant or a U.S. citizen who's the perpetrator, the bottom line is somebody has died or someone has been
One died as a result
injured.
of bad policy that was in place for 4 years, allowing people to come into this country unvetted illegally. And if we had border policies that actually worked, those people wouldn't be here, and those deaths would not have occurred. That's the difference. So when you can point directly to policy, I think that's obviously well within the scope of any president Democrat or Republican.
Yeah, by the way, it went so well in Minnesota that the president sidelined his secretary, skipped her in the cabinet meeting, replaced her with Tom Homan, who then pulled everybody out. So yeah, worked real well that they abandoned it and left. That's number one. Number two is, look, Donald Trump there's a lot of verbs and adjectives to describe. Unifying is not one of them. He doesn't even think he's unifying. That's not his strategy.
Two-thirds of the people who watched the speech thought it was very positive, and they liked it.
Actually, it was the lowest positivity in 20 years of any.
I think that's right.
Listen, he patently bold-faced lied about illegal immigrants and criminality. He said that the man who had killed the Ukrainian woman in Charlotte, North Carolina, Irina, was an undocumented immigrant who had been let in by Biden. That was a lie. He's a U.S. citizen. He was born in North Carolina.
Oh, hold on. Did he just casually drop that the man Trump cited was actually a US citizen born in North Carolina? And Trump stood in front of Congress and said he was an undocumented immigrant let in by Biden? That's not spin. That's not interpretation. That's a verifiable, provable lie told to the American people during the State of the Union. And here's what makes my blood boil. This isn't a one-off mistake. This is the playbook, every single time. Conflate immigration with crime, find a tragic case, attach it to illegals, and watch the base eat it up. Doesn't matter if the facts collapse under the slightest scrutiny. By the time fact-checkers publish corrections, the talking point has already metastasized across every right-wing outlet. The woman on this panel nailed something crucial, though. She pointed out that Americans are killed every single day, predominantly by other American citizens. That's not a political opinion. That's Bureau of Justice statistics. But you'll never hear that framing from Trump because it doesn't serve the narrative. And Moskowitz, look, I've been watching him operate since he got to Congress in 2022. The man knows how to land a punch. When he pointed out that the Minnesota operation went so catastrophically wrong that they yanked Noem and replaced her with Tom Homan, that's not commentary. That's documented administrative chaos. The misinformation isn't accidental. It's architectural. And until more people start calling it what it is, live, in the moment, on camera, we're losing this information war.
That is no. We don't know. There's maybe 20 people who
we do know because ICE has put out numbers. We actually do know that that's not true. It is a lie. Listen, he lied over 20 times. Daniel Dale from CNN has done the fact checking, and a lot of those lies were about immigration. He said Maduro opened up the prisons and the insane asylums. There is no evidence, zero, that Maduro did that. Castro did it in 1980. But there is zero evidence that Maduro did it in the last few years.
This is kind of the whole point. You're literally defending Maduro in Venezuela right now.
I am not defending Maduro. I am telling you the guy you say is unifying is a pathological liar.
I don't think it's defending Maduro to just point out that what Trump said about Maduro is not true, okay? That's not a defense of Maduro. It's just a defense of
Bobby, he's so unifying. I feel unified. Don't you feel unified? I mean, I feel so unified that the president, he's just unifying everything. He's just painting us.
We are being brought together every moment of every day.
We're just dripping.
All right, next.
And there it is. I am not defending Maduro. I am telling you, the guy you say is unifying is a pathological liar. That's the whole thing, isn't it? That's the entire conversation we've been having for the last hour, distilled into one sentence. Look, I've watched a lot of political discourse over the years. A lot. And what strikes me about everything we've just witnessed isn't the individual lies, though there were plenty. It's the exhausting, deliberate strategy of making truth itself feel optional. When you can stand before Congress for 108 minutes, the longest State of the Union in American history, by the way, and just say things that aren't true, and then have half the political apparatus defend those things anyway, that's not a debate anymore. That's erosion. But here's what gives me hope, genuinely. People like Moskowitz aren't backing down. Omar and Tlaib aren't backing down. They're being called lunatics, told to leave the country, and they're still showing up. That matters. That actually matters. So where do we go from here? The midterms are coming. Every single one of you watching has a choice about whether this becomes the new normal or whether we push back, not with chaos, not with matching the hostility, but with facts, with receipts, with showing up. The unifying thing to do right now isn't silence. It's demanding better. From our leaders, from our media, from ourselves. Stay loud, stay informed, and for the love of democracy, stay engaged.